From cars that look completely stupid to the one that was so bad it created catastrophes. These are the most horrific cars ever made in history. Like this one. This car created a huge problem that no one saw coming. One moment, it's a silent electric vehicle. The next, a raging inferno.
Horrified neighbors watch as a Chevy Bolt bursts into flames, engulfing this Virginia home.
Chevy Bolts were catching fire on their own. No crash, no warning, just flames.
The last thing I thought was that the car would have spontaneously lit on fire. The fire department was unable to put the battery out. They had to drag it by the side of the road and let it burn overnight.
Turns out there were tiny defects in the battery, which had massive consequences. These flaws forced GM to recall 142,000 bolts. Owners got urgent warnings to park outside and stay away from full charges. But at least they got warnings. Faraday's future team couldn't even get that.
Oh no!
Personally, I've never seen a more embarrassing moment than this. This car malfunctioned so bad, it shocked the entire world. It was CES 2017. Faraday Future was ready to impress the world with their star, the legendary FF91. The stage was set, and this EV was also introducing an exciting new tech, self-parking. As the audience eagerly awaited, then Faraday's CEO finally pressed the driverless valet button.
Press the button and it will find its way to the garage. Whoa. What?
It was complete silence. I mean, seriously, only Gia's tears could be heard, allegedly. Even the other guy chuckled nervously.
Okay, it seems like it's a little bit lazy tonight.
Later, you'll see the most horrific car, which created catastrophes. But first, let's rewind back to the early 2000s, as this car created big problems for everybody on the road. The Ford Explorers were the hot topic back then, but turns out highways had turned into complete danger zones for the Explorer drivers. The alleged culprit? Firestone tires. They weren't just failing, they were exploding at high speeds. Families were shattered as fatalities piled up. 1 second, smooth driving. The next, a violent rollover nightmare. Investigations exposed serious flaws in both the tires and the SUV.
Firestone turned around and asked federal regulators to investigate Ford, claiming a design flaw in the Ford Explorer, not the tires, made the SUV unsafe to drive.
As a result, massive recalls followed. Ford scrambled, redesigning the Explorer with safer tires and stability control. And not just Explorer, Ford even improved safety for its other cars too. But Ford and Firestone's decades-long partnership burned to the ground. But Ford wasn't the only one facing an automotive nightmare, because around the same time, Pontiac had introduced the Aztek. This SUV had a design only a mother could love. Critics dubbed it as one of the ugliest cars ever made. Interestingly enough, its sales expectations were still high. Even after everything, Pontiac was estimated to sell at least 75,000 units per year.
Oh, now that's cute.
Only about 28,000 people dared to be seen in one. Dealerships became Aztec graveyards, with cars collecting dust like forgotten gym memberships. And so, by 2010, Pontiac knew it was done and dusted. But then, Breaking Bad happened. It made the Aztek ironically cool, Walter White's life choices included. From a disaster to a cult classic, the Aztek finally won. Well, kind of. But Pontiac's flop still wasn't as bad as the Pinto. In the 1970s, Ford dropped the Pinto, hoping for a compact hit. But hidden under the hood, a deadly design flaw. One bad rear-end collision, and boom, fireball. The gas tank sat way too close to the rear bumper, and as a result, explosions and a full-blown scandal. The public outrage was insane. It changed car safety forever, with Ford's reputation taking serious hits. Thank God we don't see that from Ford now.
Nice.
But speaking of design flaws, luxury cars got wild when Malaysia dropped the Bufori Geneva. Kevlar body, 6.4-liter V8? But hey, something doesn't look right here, right? People said it looked like a melted Chrysler hitting a Bentley. And also, there was one slight problem. Their main competitor, Rolls-Royce. They really thought they could flex on Rolls-Royce. I mean, how come they didn't think it through?
That is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
But here's what Infiniti had to go through. Because guys, this car created such an embarrassing moment, no one could believe it. The Detroit Auto Show was buzzing. Infiniti's new QX inspiration was ready to steal the show. It was lights, camera, and action.
You can't see it, but it is here.
Turns out the car forgot to, move.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
Executives stood around like NPCs, waiting for something to happen. Technicians rushed in, pressing buttons like they were hacking the Matrix or something. But still, nothing. Almost as if it was contemplating existence. Hours later, the car finally rolled out. Fashionably late. Infiniti's big reveal? More like the world's slowest loading screen. But you know what else crashed harder than that QX? The C3 Pluriel. In 2003, Citroën dropped the C3 Pluriel. 5 cars in one. A hatchback, sunroof, cabrio, spider, and roadster pickup. Huge flex. Basically the Transformers of budget cars. The roof comes off easy. But here's the thing. What about storing it back? CarWow said it took 20 minutes and an engineering degree to get the thing off. But look, this next one is a complete shocker, especially since this disaster was from none other than Mercedes. In 1997, Mercedes dropped the A-Class, thinking it was fire. But then came the Moose test, and this thing flipped like a pancake. Have you ever seen a Mercedes rolling over? You'd never really expect something like this from Mercedes, and to say that they freaked out would be an understatement. The sales completely stopped. They recalled 2,600 cars and spent millions fixing the mess. New suspension, electronic stability control, basically a total makeover. And now, the latest A-Class is respected, finally. But that Moose test still lives on.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Mercedes went through tough times to fix that car. But Chevrolet, they built a car so unpredictable, a whole book was published to expose it. In the 60s, Chevrolet rolled out the Corvair, a stylish rear-engine ride. Smooth, elegant, but the unorthodox design hid a dangerous flaw. And a rather dumb one, if you ask me. The engine's weight disturbed the balance of the car, making its handling extremely unpredictable. At high speeds, spinouts and rollovers became a terrifying reality. Drivers had no warning. Just a sudden loss of control and thus disaster. This led to a book being published called Unsafe at Any Speed, Ralph Nader's 1965 bombshell. The book exposed Corvair's deadly secrets, sparking national outrage. GM did everything to fix the suspension, but it was too late. Sales completely tanked, and by 1969, the Corvair was gone. But look, now that we're at the top 3 horrific cars, buckle up, because things are gonna get much more insane. Like what McLaren did with their innovation. In 2012, McLaren unleashed the X1, a supercar with no rival. No, literally, especially since no one wanted it.
No, man.
It was almost like a mix between the 1961 Facel Vega and the 1953 Chrysler d'Elegance. Some called it innovation, while others called it an identity crisis. The critics didn't hold back one bit, dubbing it the fail of the century. I mean, that's harsh. Sure, it had a carbon fiber body inspired by classic cars, but gotta admit, there was too much wrong there already. But not as wrong as what Toyota had, which put them through some dark times. In 2010, Toyota faced an absolute nightmare. Prius brakes started to fail during sudden stops with no warning.
Toyota's third recall in less than 6 months. This time it is for the Prius hybrid, one that had been expected. Is it enough, the question this morning, to put the brakes, though, on the car maker's sliding reputation?
There was sheer panic on the roads as cars couldn't slow down. Investigators found that there was a glitch in the braking system. Yeah, a glitch in the brakes of all places. Toyota had to recall 437,000 hybrid vehicles worldwide.
Roughly 200 hybrid drivers in the US and Japan have complained of a short delay when hitting their brakes in bad weather or bumpy roads. This latest recall affects 435,000 vehicles worldwide.
But even after that, their problems didn't just stop there. Unintended acceleration also affected Toyota's other models as well. Now, just think about that for a second. On one hand, you have cars that won't slow down, and on the other, cars that don't want to slow down at all. This led to some of the most horrifying collisions ever. As a result, lawsuits flooded in, blaming faulty electric systems. And for Toyota, well, instead of the big payday, it was a disaster. They paid millions in settlements and fines, and even though they eventually fixed the flaws, the damage was done. Trust in the reliable brand took a massive hit that day. But now, here's the most horrific moment you'll ever see. Done by none other than General Motors. Let's rewind back again to the early 2000s. GM cars had a life-threatening secret, a tiny 90-cent ignition switch that could shut off mid-drive, also known as GM's fatal ignition switch.
Sometimes a problem with just one of them can turn into a disaster. In the case of a Chevy Cobalt, it's a 90-cent ignition switch.
No power steering, no brakes, nothing. Just pure chaos at high speeds. And worst of all, the airbags wouldn't deploy either. As a result, people lost control and lives were lost in an instant. At least 13 casualties were linked to this defect, and in 2014, they finally recalled 2.6 million cars. Now, first of all, 2014? It took them 10 years to do the recall?
Well, clearly the fact that it took over 10 years indicates that we have work to do to improve our process.
This is shocking, especially since the fix was just to change a 90-cent part. But GM, even after all that, they allegedly stayed quiet. Consumers were enraged.
GM needs to accept responsibility for what they have done and make things right for all these families behind me, including my son, that has to live the rest of his life the way he is.
And even Congress got involved, demanding answers. GM had nothing as it crumbled under all the pressure.
We want to learn as much as we can from this situation. It's a tragic situation, but if we can learn and we can make a better process, that is our goal.
Incident reports even later tied over 100 casualties to the defect. As a result, GM was fined $900 million in a DOJ settlement, and they eventually apologized, calling it a failure of responsibility. But for many, it was too little, too late. Lives were lost. The damage was already done. And I feel all of that could have been prevented had they reacted earlier. Maybe that's why they take safety much more seriously now. But guys, you know what else is crazy? The craziest cars in the world that you never knew existed. Like this car that can run on water, or the craziest car ever made, which doesn't even have a driving seat. And I know you want to see them, so just click this video right here.